Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and I want to welcome you today. If this is your first time joining me, I'm glad you're here. If you've watched my other videos, I'm glad you've returned. I invite you to hit the subscribe button below as well as the notification bell, and you'll be alerted every time that I upload a video. Today we're going to make a simple card. It's just a simple phrase on the front, "You're amazing." You could use this for a myriad of reasons to send a card. The inside, I've just put a strip of the DSP, the Designer Series paper, on the bottom and left this blank, and you could write whatever you wanted in. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up, so these are all Stampin' Up products. And here is our catalog. This catalog only runs till the end of May. Then we have a new catalog coming out. I'll invite you to my Facebook group, Karen's Cards and More. Watch the calendar of events. I'm going to do just a little teaser for the new catalog, and then in June I'll do a catalog open house where we'll go through the catalog together and look at some really cool things that they have for the next year in the Stampin' Up catalog. So back to the card. When I was figuring out what I wanted to make, I thought about when I first started making cards. You know, it's always neat to get a card that's handmade, that personal touch. It always says so much more than just a store-bought card. But my first card that I ever made, I have to tell you, it was an epic fail. I was so discouraged. It looked so bad. I'm glad that I thought about digging it out to show you today, but I wouldn't even dare do that. It was so bad, and I vowed I would never make another card. And I didn't for a long time. And so as I was thinking about that this week, I thought, you know, there's people that want to learn to make a card, or they want to start stamping, but they're intimidated. They see all these techniques and all these beautiful fancy cards, and they're just scared to get started. And maybe that's you. Maybe you would say, I don't like my handwriting. I can't do that. That's the beauty of stamps. You don't need to have beautiful handwriting. You let the stamp do the work for you. So with that in mind, I wanted to do a card that didn't use any difficult techniques, that would be easy for a beginner, so that you could make this as your very first card and you could be successful. Because if you're successful with your first one, you'll want to make a second one. And let me tell you, you'll get hooked really easy on card making. So that was my inspiration for this card. Let's talk about what I used to make this card. I used products from the Ornate Garden Suite from Stampin' Up. This is the Designer Series paper that comes with that suite. You get 12 sheets, there's 6 different designs, and you get 2 of each. And these are just gorgeous papers. You have one side. This is the one side, and I want to show you these because there's some really neat surprises on the back side. So this one has some little pink flowers, but on the back you have this beautiful gold embossed look, and you can take the Stampin' Up markers and you can color this in. You can take ink and brayer over it. There's a lot of different techniques that you can use, and I hope that you'll come back to my channel and I'll show you some of those techniques going forward. But just a beautiful canvas to do some really neat things with. This one also has the gold in it, just really stunning, really beautiful. And the back side is more of those little flowers. One thing that's really neat about Stampin' Up is the product coordination. So we have cardstock and ink in all these colors, and it goes so beautifully together. So if you have difficulty matching, what do I put with this? What do I put with that? Stampin' Up does all the work for you because the products coordinate so well together. If you like daisies, we have a daisy pattern. And the back side is a pink, kind of like a tiled look. And this one's just a whole bunch of flowers and just a green flower background. And here we have more daisies. And again, on the back we have this gold embossed look, and you could again color these flowers, you could ink them, a lot of different things you could do there. And this is the one we're going to be using today. And the back side is just some beautiful little flowers. So that's the designer series paper. Let's talk about the stamp kit. There are two different bundles. If you get the suite, it comes with all that paper. It comes with both bundles of stamps and dies and a few other things, but there's two separate bundles of stamps and dies that come in the Ornate Garden Suite. So the first one is this. Here's the stamp set. It has some floral images and some little accent images, and it comes with this die set. So you have some different really ornate frames is what, and that's actually what it's called. But really neat frames that you could use in your card making. And die cutting makes it really easy. You just put it through your die cut machine and all the work is done for you. So that's one bundle you can get. You can buy these individually. If you buy them together, you save 10%. So it's always good to buy the bundles when they're available. This isn't what we're going to use today. We're going to use the other one. And that's the Ornate Thanks. And you have the thank you sentiments, but then you have all these little sentiments. And one of them is "You're amazing," and that's the one we're going to use today. Let me show you this. This stamp set, the Ornate style, is the rubber stamps, the cling stamps. The Ornate Thanks is the polymer. So just a little bit of difference there. The dies that come with this, I can't show you because when I ordered mine, they're on back order and I haven't got them yet, but they're some really pretty border dies, just really fancy looking. And so that's what the die set is that goes with this. So let's talk about the dimensions of the pieces that you would need. You don't have to write all this down because I will put it in the description below the video. So I use the Mint Macaron Card Stock, and I started with a piece that's 8.5 by 5.5, and I scored it in the middle at 4.25. Now, if you're new to making cards, that's the standard A2 card size, so that when you fold it, it's 4.25 by 5.5. You can fold it and you can use it vertically, you can use it horizontally. That's the normal card size. If you don't have a score, I use my bone folder to crease it. I do this on the Stampin' Up! Has a trimmer that has a score. You can use that. You can just put the edges together and fold it. So that's the base. That's going to be our card base. Then you're going to need some of the Whisper White cardstock. This piece is 4 by 5.25, and this is going to go on the inside so that you could write your sentiment, your personalized note. Then for the outside, for the layers, you're going to need two pieces that are 1 5/8 by 5.5. Now, if you look when you go to trim, if you have a trimmer or if you're using a ruler, so your 1.5 is 1 4/8, so it would be the next. Usually it's divided into 16ths, so you'll have a little mark and then another little bit bigger mark. That would be your 5/8. Just in case you're new to that and you're thinking, what in the world is she talking about? So 1 5/8 by 5.25, two pieces of that. Then you'll need this one for the stamped sentiment, and it's 5/8 by 5.25. So then we have the designer series paper, and you're going to need two pieces that are 1.5 by 5 1/8, and that's going to go on the layered outside. And then I just used a little strip of this. This is 7/8 by 5.25, and this is going to go on the inside of the card. And I buried my card underneath here. Let me show you what I did. So on the inside of the card, I just put a strip of the designer series paper down here at the bottom and left this blank. And so that's what we're going to do with this strip. Okay? And then you'll need some metallic pearls. These come, you get a sheet of the gold and a sheet of the silver that come in the pack, and we're going to use 2 of those today. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the inside panel. So you're going to take your large piece of Whisper White, and we're just going to put this small strip of Designer Series paper on the bottom. So we have the silicone, Stampin' Up sells the silicone mat, and it's really good for doing your gluing on. Whether you're using the snail adhesive, which is what our tape runners are called. That's getting ready to change. The new catalog that's coming out in June, we won't have snail anymore. We have tape runners, but they're different. So the current catalog, if you order out of there, it'll be called snail adhesive. But the snail adhesive, the liquid glue, the hot glue, nothing will stick to this. It just rolls right off. So a good investment to protect your work surface. So we're just going to put a little bit of this on here, and I'm just going to run 2 strips. And this is really easy because we're just going to line it up at the bottom. You don't have to worry about how am I going to get that on there straight. You're just going to line it up at the bottom. So line it up at one edge and across the bottom. And just like that, the inside is done. Okay? So let's go to the card base. Let's go ahead and fold it. So I usually hold the ends together, and then I come back with my bone folder and I just crease it. And I usually turn it over and do it again on the back side just to give a good fold. Okay? Now, let's go back to these little pieces. So we're just going to layer the Designer Series paper on top of the white. And you're going to have a small border of the white all the way around the Designer Series paper. So let's just put a little adhesive on this. Get this up to the center here where you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I just kind of line it up, knowing that it's a very thin border. And I look at the sides, I look at the top, and I think that looks good. Now your first couple times, you might mess this up. You might have it crooked. It might be not as straight as you would like it. Just cut some more pieces and try again. Don't give up. Keep trying. So we're going to do the second piece. And it's just the same process. We're just putting the adhesive on there. And we're just going to make sure we got the same amount on both sides. That looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to stamp. And let me show you something about the stamping. The first thing with the, this is the sentiment we're going to use. With the polymer stamps, sometimes when you first use them, the ink doesn't want to adhere to the stamp. You can do a couple things with it. You can put some Versamark, which is a clear ink used in embossing. You can stamp it in there and then wipe it off. But a lot of times, if you'll just put it on your arm or your skin like that, it just gives it enough that the ink will stick to it. So that's how if you want to call that seasoning, that's how I go about getting my stamps ready to use. And then with the polymer, you want something soft as you're stamping onto because it's going to make the ink adhere better. This is just a piece of foam sheet like they use in packing. Stampin' Up has a paper piercing mat, a Stampin' Pierce mat. It's in the current catalog until the end of May. It is not in the new catalog for the next year, so if you want that, you would need to get that. It's a great platform for stamping on, but it's going away at the end of the month. So you can use this, and you want to stamp on that soft surface. Now let me give you a tip if you're new to stamping. I would encourage you to keep a piece of scrap paper right beside you. And what I would do, just because if you stamp and you mess it up, you're going to get frustrated, and then you're going to just get discouraged and you're going to quit. So what I would do is keep a piece of scrap paper always, every time you go to stamp, and I would ink it up, and then I would just practice on your scrap paper. Who cares how it turns out, right? It's scrap paper. But that kind of helps you know, okay, how much pressure, I don't want to rock it, am I getting enough ink on there? And as the saying goes, practice really does bring improvement. So just ink it up and just do a few practices. Because the more you do that, you're going to get comfortable with it. And then the less discouraged you're going to get when you go to stamp the real piece. So I'm going to stamp this piece. This is going to go on our card. Now I put it in the middle, but this is totally up to you. You could put it to one side if you wanted to change the looks up a little bit. Let me show you the finished card. So I put it in the middle and then put the two pearls on each end. You could totally do something different if you wanted to. You could put it to one side and put the pearls vertical to each other. You could do whatever you wanted, but the way we're going to do it is we're going to put it in the middle. And the other thing I would just want to point out to you, if you're a new stamper, this has two sides. If you stamp on this side and it didn't turn out the way you wanted, don't just throw it away and get discouraged. Flip it over and stamp on the other side. Okay? All right, so I'm just going to eyeball this. I hope I'm not getting my head in the camera. And I just hold it on there for a few minutes. I'm not really putting pressure on there. I'm just holding it to give that ink a chance to adhere. There we go. Our sentiment's done. So we're done with the ink. So we can get that out of the way. And all we have left is just assembling the card. The next tip I would give you if you're a beginning card maker, dry fit everything. Put it on there and see, okay, there's how much border I'm going to have. Put your next piece on there so you kind of know how everything's going to fit together before you actually adhere anything. It just tends to work out better if you have a good idea, because then you can know, well, I want more room in between, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit more. You just have a better idea of where you want to go with it if you dry fit it first. So I would always recommend that. So let's start putting it together. You are almost done. And you'll have your first card made. Now I realize there's probably people watching that this is not your first card, and I welcome you as well, but I just wanted to do something to help those who've been wanting to make a card but have been scared to try, because that was me. Okay, so I'm just lining it up, trying to make sure I got the same border all the way around. Now, what I did on this, I put the top panel and the bottom panel on first, because then I knew my sentiment layer had to go in the middle. Because if I put this on next and I get it too far down, then my bottom one is off the bottom. So I wanted to make sure that I got my two panels on there right. So I put the bottom panel on next. And I just, same process. I just kind of eyeballed it. you know, trying to line it up with this and making sure that I had the same border on both sides and along the bottom. And I would say, you know, when you're first starting, don't get in a hurry with it. Take your time. Okay, now all we have left is putting the sentiment. And it's going to go right there, just like that, okay? What's nice about this is You're Amazing. That could be used for a lot of different things. You could write on the inside for a birthday. You could write a thank you. You could write something thinking of you. There's all kinds of things you could do. You could use other stamp sets on the inside and do more stamping. I just wanted to keep all of the elements pretty basic so that someone who's brand new to card making would not feel intimidated. That was my goal with this card. So for the sentiment, I just eyeballed it here, tried to get it in the middle, and tried to line the edges up. And then I just, again, eyeballed it across, like that. And then we're going to take our little metallic pearls, and I used the gold ones, and they have adhesive on the back, and I just centered it, put one on each end, and you can, I've got 2 or 3 of them stuck on my fingers. Okay, so you can just kind of eyeball it, try to line it up, try to get it the same distance in, and there you go. So I'm going to put this out of the way before I get another mess going here. Okay. All right, now the only thing we have left is to put our inside panel to attach it. And then you'll have your first card complete and ready to go in the mail. Now, the way I did mine, I used the designer series paper towards the bottom. You could very easily flip it the other way if you wanted it at the top. It's totally up to you, whatever you like, whatever you prefer. I wanted it at the bottom. So it's the same thing. I just kind of made sure I had the same amount on each side, tried to make sure it was straight. And there you go. The card's done. Ready to put my personalized greeting on the inside and plop in the mail. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope if you have never made a card that you'll give this a try. Start with this simple card and then come back for more videos because I'll challenge you with the next one. But we can learn together, and my goal is to help you grow in your card making. If you want any of the products that you've seen here today or a catalog, please check out my website, karensmith.stampinup.net. You can email me at karenscardsandmore@woh.rr.com. I also have a Facebook group and a Facebook page, both called Karen's Cards and More. Please check those out and join the group, and you'll see I post cards as I do them on there, and that's where you would be able to find my calendar of events to watch for that catalog open house coming up in June. And I hope to see you the next time.